Hi, my name is Lakshmi, and this is my final project for cloud computing and the Internet of Things CSCI E-90 course at Harvard University Extension School. The topic for my final project is AWS CloudTrail. Starting with the introduction to CloudTrail. AWS CloudTrail is a web service that records AWS API calls for your account and delivers log files to you. The API calls made through the console or SDKs or CLI commands. Every time you make an API call, which could be on a growing set of services around the world, which could be EC2 or on Redshift or for VPC or IAM, RDS, S3, all these are tracked or recorded by the CloudTrail web service offered by AWS and in the form of log files. About the generated log files. The recorded information includes the identity of the API caller, the time of the API the identity of the API caller, the time of the API call, the source IP address of the API caller, the request parameters, and the response element. The response elements returned by the AWS service. The log information could either be seen in S3 bucket in the form of log files or in a user-friendly format like in the JSON format on clicking the view event button on any event in the CloudTrail console. So either on the console or in an S3 bucket. Why is CloudTrail important? CloudTrail, as mentioned earlier, records all AWS API calls associated with an AWS account that occurs through AWS Management Console, CLI, or through SDKs. This means this records all the changes made to an AWS resource for the complete life cycle of the resource. The complete life cycle meaning creation, modification, start, stop, interactions, deletions. This AWS API call history produced by CloudTrail are usually used to perform security analysis, to track the resource changes in AWS, to troubleshoot operational issues, and for compliance auditing. Where could the CloudTrails be used today? Like few possibilities that I can think of. The IT staff in companies using AWS services are using CloudTrail to monitor the application, like for example to get notifications of suspicious activities. This is done simply by setting up an SNS notifications for whenever an unwanted or specific range of IPs sends API calls, meaning someone trying to acquire someone who doesn't have the access but still trying to acquire your resources, or trying to modify, create, or delete any resources. Okay, this is annoying. I'm sorry about it. And then the government organizations using AWS, and then the IT auditors, and any organizations with tons of governance could use this feature. The DevOps engineers could use this to troubleshoot why a specific API call appears to be failing or not behaving as expected. A typical CloudTrail application overview. So how does this work? So you make API calls through console or SDK applications or CLI. Whenever you make API calls to any of the services offered by Amazon, like the VPC, EC2, RDS, EBS, like S3, any of them, it gets recorded by a web service of AWS, which is CloudTrail. It gets recorded in the form of log files. It records the log information, and it could store it in the S3 bucket, or it can also be subscribed to an SNS topic, which I will talk about more like as a part of this project later. And these log files can be used for whatever I mentioned, like for the operational issues or for the security analysis and many more. So that's how it works. And my final project concept. Okay, So I have tried building an automation tool which records and displays the log information on creating and running an instance. So every time someone creates or runs an instance, I have an automation tool which gives me a message saying this event occurred. So for that, I have used SNS, SQS, and yeah, I've written a small program to do that. So how does it work? I created an SNS topic for run instance event in my CloudTrail. I created a queue using SQS. Queue subscribed to that SNS topic. Every time run instance is run by a user in my account, CloudTrail records the API call. SNS publishes this notification to the subscribed queue. That's all my project does. I have used Eclipse project, the IDE, Java program, AWS CloudTrail of course, SQS web service, SNS web service, and S3 buckets to demonstrate my concept. As a part of this project, I have also tried executing CLI commands to operate on CloudTrail web service. Also developed a few Python programs to pull the log information from AWS based on the attribute values like event ID, event name, and a program. And also have written a program to implement one of the CLI commands, get trail status. Last but not the least, I have demonstrated how to work with CloudTrail web service through the management console, which is the simplest. That's about it. There I have provided few references, which is mostly from the AWS website itself. And this is my link to the long YouTube and my link to the short YouTube.